Just like in the first episode of the show, where we were warned about how dangerous a potential outbreak of the Cordyceps infection could be in 1968, in episode 2 of the show we saw a professor taking a look and seeing the infection for the first time from a human. Another haunting, harrowing scene that set the tone for an eerie environment. This scene in Indonesia was extremely important as it was on the cusp of the outbreak, and by then, it was already too late to stop it. So let's break down and explain what this scene meant, the origin of the virus, and why it couldn't be stopped. So let's get into it. Here is why the opening scene in Jakarta in The Last of Us episode 2 is important. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The first thing that we saw in the beginning of the second episode was set on the 24th of September 2003 in Jakarta, Indonesia. This was 2 days prior to what we saw unfolding with Joel and Sarah on the 26th of September in the United States. We were introduced to Professor Ibu, who is a professor of mycology, which is the study of fungi. This showed us from the off that something wasn't right, and it was most likely going to be connected to the outbreak that we saw taking place 2 days later, especially due to the fact that she was taken away from her lunch by the military. We saw that the professor examined a sample of the Cordyceps infection, where it was revealed to us that it was taken from a human, something that up until then it was known to be impossible to do, as it didn't live or thrive within a human host. This was due to the temperature of the planet, at least that's what we were told in 1968. However, due to the temperature of the planet increasing over the 35 years since, it seemed as though a human could now be a good host for it. After examining the person who was infected, we saw how the fungi lived on long after the human host was dead, as it continued to function on its own. It just had no brain to take over. Once they were out of the examination room, we saw the origin of the virus be explained and how it spread so quickly throughout the world. We found out that the Cordyceps infection occurred in a flour and grain factory on the west side of Jakarta. It was also noted that it was the perfect substrate, meaning the perfect place and conditions where the organisms were able to live, grow, and get its nourishment in order to thrive. This explained how it spread throughout the world in only a few days, because the flour and grains would have most likely been shipped all around the world, and then once consumed by an individual, it was then present on that land, meaning there was no escape. With the rapid rate in which it can spread after being bitten as well, it showed that there was no stopping this, just like what we heard of in Indonesia within the factory. Hence why when we saw the professor mention that there was no medicine or vaccine, the only plausible option that she felt that there was to destroy the city, to kill anybody that would most likely be infected in the area, and prevent the widespread devastation around the globe. However, that chance was already gone. It showed how little time 30 hours actually was in the grand scheme of things. So in this scene, we saw the origin of the Cordyceps infection and how it ended up in the States 2 days later in 2003. But was this different to what we saw in the game? Well, it was ever so slightly. Within The Last of Us the game, the infection began taking a hold of humans through infected crops, just like what we saw was shown to us in the second episode. However, within the story within the game, they were able to identify some of the products that may have been contaminated and potentially caused devastation to humans, and they pulled them out of the stores. However, that was also too late. The main difference came at the location of the origin of the infection. Within episode 2, it showed that it came from Jakarta, Indonesia, which lies in Asia, whereas in the game, the infection originated in South America. The small but effective change was something that actually made a lot of sense, as the real Cordyceps infection that's known to impact insects and kill its host can often be found throughout Asia, rather than in South America, so it was a logical change. This opening scene really did show us the speed in which the Cordyceps infection can spread across the globe. It reiterated that there was no way out and that the future was bleak due to the fact that, as Ibu stated, she'd been studying it for many years and never found a way to create a medicine or vaccine. But with that, it also reiterated the importance of Ellie, and how in a world where there was no cure or prevention even 20 years later, she's the one piece of hope for the future of civilization. It was a powerful, haunting, harrowing scene that made you realize how damaging it actually was, whilst shedding a light on how it all started. So, there you have it, why the opening scene in Jakarta in The Last of Us episode 2 is so important. If you want to see more videos such as endings explained, theories and predictions, and character breakdowns, then click on the I button. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @brainpilot_. and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of the opening? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.